Lobster. 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 You probably already know who Jordan Peterson or Lobsterman is. He's arguably one of the most prominent conservative thought leaders on this platform, along people like Ben Shapiro. He often says that he isn't a conservative, quote-unquote classical liberal. However, his talking points are exactly that of conservatives. But based on the title, you may be asking, how does Lobsterman fit into the self-help industry? And how is the self-help industry so predatory? To understand Jordan Peterson's role in the self-help industry, you also have to understand what underlying beliefs you have to have his ideology make sense to you. I would argue the core beliefs you would have to internalize to believe in Jordan Peterson is ignoring the material aspects of any situation, or the opposite of materialism, looking at things through an exclusively idealistic lens. I won't go too deeply into what idealism is. However, to put it in a nutshell, idealism can be the line of thinking where what happens in the world depends on what happens in the mind, as opposed to materialism, where what happens in the world determines what happens in the mind.
Materialism in our case refers to a philosophy or world outlook that treats reality as independent of human thought. It places emphasis on the very matter this world is made out of. This definition makes more sense when looking at materialism's philosophical opposite, idealism. Idealists believe that human thought comes first, that the world exists in our minds.
And I would say idealism manifests itself in Jordan Peterson's ideology. Standard conservative thought emphasizes the quote-unquote bootstraps mentality. It assumes that everything that happens in the world depends on a person's quote-unquote mindset. A perfect example might be the just start your own business or something meme. It assumes that you can create something without any of the material things that go into it. Studies have supported the idea that most businesses fail because of a lack of funding and resources. You don't have to go very far to see that. Like if you're starting a business, you're going to look at how much you have to pay in goods and services to sell your value-added product. You're not going to make up for your lack of investment with a gamma male grind set. You can't just gin things into reality just because you think it. You might as well tell someone to catch a lobster in a desert. It certainly might be possible, but if you told someone that you're going to go lobster hunting in the Sahara Desert, they're probably gonna laugh at you.
Ooh, what are you doing here?
I'm looking for lobsters. Gotta get my gamma move grind set going. Wow, I'm so alpha.
But you may be asking, isn't Jordan Peterson ideology something that revolves around genetic determinism, around IQ? He often argues that IQ determines someone's place in society and material conditions. However, I will point out that the two talking points are not mutually exclusive and often can be complementary. Going back to the business and fishing example, saying that what you can do depends on IQ functionally isn't any different from the bootstraps mentality. You're going to have to see things in their own little bubbles to believe that you can all of a sudden fund a business with a high enough IQ or find lobsters in a desert if you're smart enough. Even if you frame those two situations pathologically or genetically, your solution is going to be the same. You're going to want to maintain the status quo. You're limiting the scope of your solution, so you're never going to question why your business is failing materially or why you're fishing for lobsters in the desert in the first place. At best, you'll be asking yourself how to fish better for lobsters in the desert. I mean, sure, but is it realistic to look at things through small scopes in an arbitrary way? And his videos corroborate the idea that he does both of these things at the same time.
One person in 8 to one person in 20. Then you can be a attorney, a research analyst, an editor, an advertising manager, a chemist, an engineer, an executive manager, etc. 87 to 93. Messenger, factory production worker, assembler, food service worker, nurse's aide, warehouseman, custodian, janitor, material handler, packer. Now, what you're starting to see is that as you move down the hierarchy, the jobs get simpler. They're more likely to be assigned by other people, or they're repetitive. Under 87, is there something? Well, no. Right. That's a big problem.
Lobsterman also talks about how things are pathological, right? For example, the Navy SEAL mindset. We're just having a specific way of thinking on its own will change your material conditions. The same thought process can be applied to Jordan Peterson's other videos. If it's about individuals, it's about personal responsibilities. If it's about a country, it's about their quote-unquote culture or their physical policies. You might as well say oil prices rise because of your personal choices in the government. You have to limit the scope of everything you're looking at if you're going to buy into Jordan Peterson's crap. Since we've established the fact that Lobsterman sees things through an idealistic lens, how does it feed into the self-help industry? To start things off, let's look at the history of self-help and what the thought processes in self-help ideology is. We can see similarities to today's self-help in the early 20th century. There was a book called A Man Thinketh. It was published in 1903. It opens with the statement, "Mind is the master power that molds and makes, and man is mind and every more he takes, tool of thought and shaping what he wills, brings forth 1,000 joys, 1,000 ills. He thinks in secret, and it comes to pass, environment is but a looking glass." I don't know, the passage kind of reminded me of those witches in old books. The opening statement alone tells me that the author has an inherent idealism. It's right there in the words, right? Mind shapes the world, and the world is just the looking glass. But you have to ask yourself, why is idealism so popular in self-help culture? I would argue that boiling things down to just a mindset is something that's marketable. Everyone has different material circumstances, but mindset seems to be a one-size-fits-all. For example, you're going to limit your audience if you wrote a book called How to Invest Money if you already have money. Your book probably isn't going to sell very well because you're targeting a very small audience of rich people. In contrast, if you just wrote a book that's called How to Get Rich Quick for Everyone, you're appealing to a very wide audience. The first example outlines a specific material condition to achieve another material condition. The second one asserts that you can just use a mindset to achieve any material condition. The second point I will make about self-help is the idea of all or nothing, right? Programs usually aren't material steps to get to your ultimate goal. Rather, it's a question of, does success exist or does it not exist? And get-rich-quick schemes of different varieties have a tendency of making spectacles of winners, whether it's someone who gains millions of dollars from altcoins and NFTs, or someone supposedly making it big from a self-help course, which, if you think about it, is the same way that lotteries and gambling works. At a casino, if you look at the front rows, you will obviously see some people winning. And you may think to yourself, oh, if I play the coin slots for long enough, I should be able to win big, right? Or in the case of a lottery, you see someone winning millions of dollars, and that's publicized to you. You may see winning big as a possibility, but people usually don't have the capacity to rationalize such small odds, right? I would argue it's the same deal when a self-help guru says, I've had students that earn 6 figures now, or 7 figures even, right? And it's not verifiable either. Even if these supposed jumps to 6 or 7 figures were verified, you'll have no idea whether the success was due to the course. If you have a large amount of people, some of them are bound to be successful. You might as well say that if you watch Mr. Beast, you'll all of a sudden get 7 figures because some people who watch Mr. Beast got 7 figures while they were subscribers. Again, correlation doesn't equal causation, and I think that people who sell get-rich-quick courses uses that same strategy to trick people into buying their courses. And if you've been a watcher of these quote-unquote self-help courses, what happens when people fail? You're supposed to blame yourself. It's the same case with cryptocurrencies and these self-help courses. If self-help doesn't work for you, you're not doing it right, apparently. And in a lot of cases, the justification is that you need to go into that gamma male grind set even harder. Or if you're getting out of an altcoin, you're spreading FUD, and you don't have the discipline to stay in an altcoin. These get-rich-quick schemes are designed to take credit for your successes and blame you for your failures. And I think people with the lobster mindset, or this borderline solipsistic way of thinking, are fertile ground for these grifts. And I think you need to have a very idealistic way of thinking to be able to get into the mindset of blaming your pathology. So I would argue people like Jordan Peterson cultivates this way of thinking. He's not the only one, but I think he's the most emblematic of this cope mindset of wishful thinking. And I would say people like Jordan Peterson gets people into that way of framing things, which allows them to get roped into these grifts. You know, with these pipelines, it's always ends with a grift, right? That's what I've noticed. And who knows, maybe you've noticed the same thing as well. Again, please tell me if you guys have anything you'd want to add to this conversation. I'd be glad to hear it. Anyways, that's the end for today's video. Goodbye.